So now the championship season is right around the corner of getting back underway. If you've not already seen today, the EFL has released a fixture list for when the fixtures will actually take place, and we've got like constantly happening football. We've got a game at the weekend, then we got one midweek, then at the weekend again. It's just constantly going to be happening, so I'm really excited to hop back into it. But what I thought we'd do for today's video is have a little bit of a look back on the championship season so far and look at every championship club and what they've been best at so far this season. I found a statistic for each side which they are the best at in the championship for this season. Another thing I wanted to touch on before we got into the video was the news that Pep Clotter will be leaving Birmingham at the end of the season as they look to go down a new route. So Birmingham fans, let me know down below what you make of that. It was always it's been a bit of a weird season, this one, for Birmingham, hasn't it? With the appointment of Clotter, I always felt like there was a bit of a split in the Birmingham fan base as to whether to give him next season or not. Birmingham have now made that decision though, so I'd be interested to know what you guys think of it. But without any further ado, let's get into each championship club. So starting it out with Barnsley. Now Barnsley, as we all know, have the youngest squad in the league, and actually the youngest squad that they fielded this season was against Leeds, with the average age of that squad being 22.1 years old. The oldest player on the pitch for Barnsley was only 24. What comes with that youthfulness though is endeavour to win the ball back, and Barnsley have actually won more tackles than anyone else in the championship so far this season. They're the only side to have won more than 700 tackles, winning 709 this season. Obviously with them being without the ball and then looking to get it back and go and press forward, they do have quality, especially in some forward areas where I think at times Barnsley can be quite underestimated. It's just that youthfulness can sometimes go into sort of naivety when defending things at the back at times, but overall for Barnsley, they've been a decent side to watch at times. It's just not been there consistently enough. Moving over to Birmingham, who have scored more headed goals than anyone else in the championship so far this season. They've scored 19. I think a lot of them have to be attributed to Lukas Djukovic. His sort of like hanging headers at the far post are so hard to defend against. We see that famous picture of Cristiano Ronaldo all the time with that one at Juventus where he's leaping. I'd like to see a jumping competition between Djukovic and Ronaldo in terms of who's going to win the ball, because in terms of a target man in the championship and scoring headed goals, he's got to be right up there. Blackburn Rovers have scored more goals in the first 15 minutes of matches than any other side in the championship so far this season. They've scored 12 goals in the opening 15 minutes, so they are the fastest starters in the league. If you manage to get through that first sort of bombardment of attacks from Blackburn, then you seem to weather the storm a little bit and be alright after that. And added on to that as well, actually, they've actually scored more goals in the first half than any other side in the championship so far this season, so it really goes to show they are good at getting off the mark. Brentford have scored the most goals from open play so far this season. 41 of their goals have come from open play. This one can't come as a massive surprise really, with BMW up front. They just wreak havoc on defences, don't they? When the season gets restarted, Brentford are one of the teams that I'm looking forward to seeing how they get on for the remainder of this season. Obviously that playoff picture is going to be a really interesting one, and in terms of the playoffs themselves, everyone's got their strengths and weaknesses, and Brentford's strengths are definitely rooted in their attacking trio. Bristol City have the best shot conversion rate in the league. They score 28.8% of their shots, which is considerably the best in the league. However, this is despite them taking the fewest shots in the league, which is a really interesting one with Bristol City. So they don't tend to shoot very often, but when they do, they score more often than not compared to every other championship side. They've only just had over 300 shots in the league, which is considerably less than everyone else, but with a conversion rate of over 28%, they're absolutely clinical. Cardiff have scored the most set pieces in the league so far this season. 19 of their goals have come from set pieces, if we think of all those corners and free kicks which are being swung in, and the ones that are going in directly, like Lee Tomlin. We all know he sort of had this resurgence this season at Cardiff and some bangers that he scored. Charlton have had the most yellow cards this season, 87 in the championship. The two main culprits for Charlton in terms of getting booked this season are both Darren Pratley and Tom Lockyer. Pratley's always going to be someone in the centre of the park who's always going to accumulate the cards. You know, he's looking to break up play, and if someone does get past him, you know, he'll look to stick a foot in there or something like that. But a really underrated player for them so far this season, Pratley. Another stat for Charlton was that they've actually made the most saves this season, so Dylan Phillips in goal has really kept them in a lot of matches this season. He's been faced with so many shots. Derby County have scored the most goals from outside the box so far this season, 14 of them coming from outside the box. I think that a lot of them have to be attributed to the likes of Tom Lawrence. Jaden Bogle, I think, scored a couple of them. Dwayne Holmes, I remember getting one. Wayne Rooney as well. They've had a lot of absolute streamers so far this season, Derby. It may have been a season for them that's gone under the radar a little bit, but in terms of their goal scoring prowess, right up there in the championship. They've also only lost twice at home this season, which is the fewest home losses in the league. Quite unsurprisingly for Fulham, they have completed the most passes in the championship so far this season. They've actually completed 20,200 258, and let me tell you, they are way out in front in terms of this statistic. In second place is Leeds, who have completed 18,600, so they're way out ahead in terms of passes completed. Obviously, with this philosophy that Scott Parker's tried to integrate, it is very possession heavy, and I'm not going to lie, at times it does look like this clip from The Simpsons when you're watching Fulham play.
Half-back passes to the center, back to the wing, back to the center. Center holds it, holds it, holds it.
Huddersfield have used more players than anyone else in the Championship so far this season. 36 different players Huddersfield have experimented with. Obviously, a little bit of that is going to come into play when a team does change managers. You know, the philosophy is going to change a little bit. Different players are going to be preferred. They had quite a busy January as well, and in the summer as well, there was quite a bit of turmoil going over in terms of, you know, the players that were leaving and players that were coming in. I think that next season with the Cowleys, that's something that they're going to look to get down a little bit and look to have a more settled squad. Hull City are leading the way for most goals scored on the counter-attack so far this season, which I thought was quite an interesting one. They're joint with Leeds with 6 goals scored on the counter-attack. That's more than anyone else in the Championship. And I think that people forget sometimes, you know, how good Hull were towards the start of the season when they did have the likes of Bone and Grosicki going forward in those areas. You know, they picked up some fantastic results. They beat Fulham 3-0 away. They beat North End 4-0 at home. They scored one terrific goal on the counter-attack in that game. Jared Bowen absolutely waltzing his way through us. With Leeds United, I could have picked a catalogue of statistics for them, really. They are leading the way on quite a number of things. One that I thought was quite interesting was that by far they've had the most shots in the league so far this season, but they've actually got the 3rd worst conversion rate in terms of those shots. Only 13.6% conversion rate. So in terms of shot per game and possession, Leeds are leading the way this season in the Championship. Obviously, the way that Bielsa teams like to dominate when they do play. And they've also been caught offside the most time so far this season, so they're always looking for that extra key pass to unlock the opposition defence, but they like to be a little bit risky with that. Luton, as well as having the highest average stadium capacity on game week, selling out 98.3% of their stadium week in, week out. They've also blocked the most shots in the league so far this season, so there have been quite a few situations where Luton have been sort of like hanging on and being bombarded around the penalty box looking to block shots and put their bodies on the line, and they have done that a lot so far this season, blocking 177 shots. Middlesbrough lead the way in the Championship for the most red cards so far this season. They've had 4, that's more than anyone else in the league, with red cards going to George Saville, Paddy McNair, Marcus Brown and Marvin Johnson. Interestingly enough, it is also Middlesbrough who have the worst shot conversion rate in the league, only scoring 12.2% of their shots on goal. This one from Millwall's not going to come as a massive surprise, I'm sure, but they have scored from the most corners so far this season. 6 of their goals this season coming directly from an assist from the corner. They're just so well drilled at it, aren't they? Like, when an opposition team can see the corner to Millwall, you always get that dread of fear. You know their 3 centre-backs are going to be coming up. You know, Jake Cooper's an absolute menace. As well as that, though, Millwall have also used the fewest amount of players in the Championship so far this season, just 23, which shows they have had quite a settled squad this year. Nottingham Forest, they've had the most shots from outside the box so far this season, but the stat that I found most interesting was that they've actually blocked the most crosses so far this season. So that's obviously a massive testament to how good their fullbacks have been this season. Matty Cash and Ribeiro as well, who I don't feel like always gets the recognition he deserves. Obviously, we normally talk about Matty Cash, but he's had an excellent season as well. And when we do talk about Matty Cash, a lot of the times we talk about like his attacking exploits, like making those overlapping runs, giving him an option on their right hand side with him used to being a winger, but it has been his defensive side of his game which he's improved exponentially so far this season, and I mean that stat goes to prove of how rigid they've been to get past. Preston North End, I mean, we've scored the most penalties this season. This one was quite an obvious one, really. 10 penalties we've scored. We've had 11 given to us, and even on the one that we missed, it was Gallagher against Luton at home at Deepdale, we scored with the rebound, so really we've scored all 11 this season. I'm not gonna lie, we have been, you know, fortunate to get the penalties. Even, I'd say there's maybe been like 1 or 2 that have been a bit sort of dodgy and iffy, but the majority of them, when I've looked back on them, I do agree that they've been penalties on the whole. But obviously we have been more fortunate than others to actually get those, because as we all know, officiating in the Championship, you never know what you're going to get, do you? Although I would argue that we do have the 2 best penalty takers in the league in both Daniel Johnson and Paul Gallagher. They've just got ice running through their veins. QPR have been the most fouled team in the Championship so far this season. Per 90, they're the most fouled team, and actually Aberi Eze has been the most foul player in the league so far this season, being fouled 89 times. Obviously, he's so good at wriggling his way out of those tight situations that the opposition just looks at them and thinks, do you know what, we're just going to have to foul him to get out of this situation. Like, there's no alternative. He's just so good on the ball. Reading have been the most successful team so far this season in terms of dribbling. They complete the most dribbles per game. That's normally about 12. And they've also had the most successful dribbles completed in the championship so far this season at 455. If you watched my video a few weeks ago where we went over some of the best dribblers in the championship, the #1 spot went to Ovi Ajaria, who has statistically been the most successful dribbler in the league so far this season. Him, similar to Eze, he's just so good at getting out of those tight situations. When Preston went to the Majewski, the guy was an absolute joke. Sheffield Wednesday like to leave things late. They have scored the most goals after 90 minutes so far this season. However, this stat is a bit of a double-edged sword, as they have also conceded the most goals after 90 minutes so far this season. So after 90, they've scored 6 goals and they've conceded 7 goals. So a lot of late drama in Sheffield Wednesday matches this season. As well as having that accolade, Sheffield Wednesday have also committed the most fouls in the championship this season. They average 15.4 fouls per game, which I thought was interesting. Stoke City hold the record so far this season for fielding the oldest squad in the championship. That was for their game away at Fulham. They lost the game 1-0, but the average age of that squad was 29.6 years old. The youngest player on the pitch for them being Jordan Cousins, who was 25, and apart from that, everyone else really is kicking on in their career, I think it's fair to say. It's always an interesting one looking into the average ages of squads, because it gives you an idea of which teams are going to have to look to rejuvenate into the future. And Stoke do have some upcoming, youngsters. There's no doubt about that. I'd like to see them being more integrated as the rest of this season unfolds. Swansea actually have the most successful tackler in their squad in the championship. Matt Grimes has won more tackles than anyone else in the league so far this season, winning 110 tackles. I think sometimes a player like Grimes can go a little bit underappreciated as well, but he's been one of Swansea's most consistent performers so far this season. He's got their second highest average match rating. He's played every game for them. And in terms of breaking things up in the middle of the park, there's been no one else that's been more successful. West Brom have won the most points from losing positions so far this season. 24 of their points have come from regaining them from losing positions, which I think it shows a great mentality above all else. But they've also had the most successful super sub in the league so far this season, that being Charlie Austin. He's been subbed on 13 times and has scored 6 goals after coming on from the bench. I think the highlight of Austin's career had to be that game away at Birmingham. He was subbed on with like 20 minutes to go, ended up scoring 2 absolutely fantastic goals, and West Brom went on to win 3-2. And then finishing things off with Wigan Athletic, it's actually the opposite of West Brom's stats. So West Brom have gained the most from losing positions, whereas Wigan have actually dropped the most points from winning positions. 31 points they've dropped from winning positions so far this season, and had they not done that, I know this is all sort of like whataboutery and if, buts and maybes, but if they hadn't gone ahead and done that, Wigan would be currently sat top of the championship, which is pretty mental. With those extra 31 points, they'd be on 72 points this season, which would take them a point above Leeds at the top. What a bonkers season that would have been. But guys, there you have it. That will wrap it up for today's video. So there was one stat from every championship club so far this season in terms of what they have been the best at. So were you surprised to find out what your club's been best at so far this season? If you know any other bizarre stats about your club, then let me know down below. Also, let me know what you think about championship football coming back and the fixture list returning. We've got some absolutely bonkers fixtures coming up, which I can't wait to get into. But apart from that, thanks very much for watching. If you did go in to enjoy, make sure to leave a like, and please do subscribe for some regular championship content. But apart from that, thanks for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.